miss it. So we have to be out of here by 6. So, well, even before that, we have to be out of here 20 of 6. So there's a smooth
curfew.
Yes.
So speak fast.
Speak fast. Yes.
Or in the vernacular of the school, they have a hard stop.
We were just talking
after us, how did it go?
We don't know, Milt. Yeah. I mean, we had a meeting for the budget committee and that, but then they had a meeting, emergency meeting after that about mask mandate.
I didn't.
Did you hear Maggie Hassan breathe a sigh of relief?
Yes. Yes.
What did she do?
Governor Zunu, who was going to run for
Can you give that to John?
Yeah, you know, I kind of figured months ago, there was an article in the Union Leader about...
Oh, no, we got one actually.
Did you get one? I'll take it back. Thanks.
Did the governor make an announcement or something?
He did, but he was not going
wasn't.
to. Yeah. He's
His family was kind of, Dad wasn't too
excited about it.
keen on him, you know, like going to Washington if.
United States Senate?
Yeah.
You know, after.
What time? It's 4:02. All right.
You know, it takes a while.
I thought Bill Cleese would be here.
Yeah.
And isn't Seal?
Who?
Seal?
She's right
We
here.
do have,
It's just
I
not.
mean, there's always things you can do sometime.
Seal?
It's just such a beautiful location.
Well, thanks. Yeah, I like that.
Slip out the door there.
Seal? Do you have to come up and sit up here?
It's rocky.
The hot seat.
Is it really? Yeah.
Very rocky. Yeah.
And if you want to grab a chair and sit on the end, that would be great.
So I figured maybe he was going to move.
I'm going to call the meeting to order in 30 seconds. So Seal can sit right here, and he can, if you want to pull a chair up, you can.
Oh, that's true.
They
What's
can
that?
hit me from here. Both ends.
That's fine.
That's the hot seat.
That's a hot seat. Yeah. It's just so that the camera, I know, well, I might have to do it, you have to do
No, I
it.
don't.
Did you fix Milt's call up or
I
not?
need Anna
On this side
to
or
be
the other side?
unknown because of what I do.
Oh, yeah.
There we
No,
go.
seriously.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
Give it a full
I
treatment.
changed my car registration. It used to be Seal.
I'm all excited now.
And I had a couple of incidences, and that's it. So I put a regular reg on it. My husband was just kidding, and I said, well, next time I get a cut tire,
You'll understand. All right. So we'll let,
Thanks.
thank you. And I have to get the welfare budget out. I know it should be in here. Okay. So welcome, everybody. We have Seal with us from the Welfare Department, and also Matt from Tri-County CAP. If there are any, yeah, just pull your chair up. He's here upon Seal's request to answer any questions that we may have about housing. So anyways, if you want to, I'll ask Jim and Lori if there's anything that they would like to present prior to.
Yeah, just 2 items. One, there was a question last week about the meals and room, if the state broke that down, and they don't. So it's a lump sum of $436, $407. So they don't break it down into where it comes from in terms of that aspect. And the other question, there is no municipal aid this year, and they do not expect, or they're not aware of any for next year.
Okay. And on the meals and room tax, we know how much we're receiving back from the state, but how much do we send to the state? Do you, I mean, I know you don't, if you don't have
Those
that right
reports
now.
wouldn't come through us. I think they would come, I would have to check. Wouldn't they be by the restaurants and the hotels, and that's their state reporting for accounting?
Diane, just, I mean, like you always see on the news about Portsmouth, there's a donor town
Yeah.
when it comes to room and meals, because they are
Yeah.
such a big part of their industry, that they provide a lot of income for other towns that maybe have none.
I bet Lincoln would be too, because of the rooms.
Yeah. So I'll have to figure out how it's distributed, because I always thought it was just a portion of what we sent in. So
No, I don't believe so.
Okay.
No, based on the thing I saw in Portsmouth, no, I'd say not. I think it's evenly distributed based on per capita or
Population.
something.
by
It's based on population.
Is it?
Yeah.
This
so
came
it's-
up once before, a couple of years ago, and
Yeah.
doesn't matter how much you bring in, it doesn't matter how much they pay out, it's based on population, so there's no control over it.
I would say that Littleton, we're probably 50-50, I would be my guess.
Wow.
Yeah, we're not a big.
We're not a
We
big-
have our share, but we,
Or-
yeah, so we'd be ahead of Whitefield, but certainly behind Portsmouth,
Kilkenny.
okay?
Yeah.
And the only other thing was at the Board of Selectmen meeting last night, they allocated $157,895 from reserves towards a tax reduction.
Oh. Okay.
Leaving our reserve at,
At,
$525,077, which would be about, I'm going to say 2.3% of the state's recommended 5.
and that is based on our most recent audit figures in terms of,
That's the most recent numbers from the DRA.
yeah, which are
2021
based on
numbers.
our
Yeah.
most recent audited numbers, right? Because you can only be as accurate on one as you are.
Yeah, on the 2020 report, we were at 525,077, which was 2.32. The 2021 report, it was 682,972. The difference between the two is 157,895. So that's what they voted to apply towards the tax. So worst case scenario, we're back to the 525,077, not counting how this year will end out.
okay.
So do we have good audit numbers now through,
Through 19, and we'll have the 2020 audit numbers in the spring.
yeah, so I mean, this number could still be off because we're a year behind on the audit. For better or for worse.
Were there any findings in the 19 results?
In the 20, well, yeah, there were, but in the 2020, we're expecting about the same verbiage
Yeah.
as in 2018, 2019. And after that, these guys have done an amazing job.
I mean, there weren't any findings of anything missing or anything gone. It was just
Yeah.
some grants would come in and it would all get put in one pot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, so it was.
that's why at some of your
correct
reports, you're
assignment
seeing
of the
difference in numbers because we're
yeah.
finally putting money where it's supposed to be. So it's just adjusting that out and then accounting for some things that weren't accounted for before. Maybe they were lumped in a personnel line item or a payroll line item, and we're trying to break those things down a little further. And then I got the impression, and this is not a negative of theirs, like maybe Karen would hold that money in a pot till the end of the year and then start moving it back into the various areas, and that's maybe sometimes certain amounts didn't get moved to the right pots, but there had nothing to do with anything missing.
Okay.
Yeah, that's
Nothing
good.
nefarious, huh?
No.
No, we had that looked at.
Oh, that's good. So is that it?
That's it on those two
Okay.
items, so we could jump to welfare.
Okay, sounds good. Welcome. I think everyone knows you, Seal, right? Yeah.
I actually, one more time for your name, I'm sorry.
Seal. Seal. C-E-I-L.
T-E-I-L.
C is in Charlie, but seal.
Yes, see,
Guess I'm
just-
getting old. Sorry.
It's okay.
Okay.
Well, I know Seal from a long time ago because I helped with
Welfare.
welfare. I was the hearing person for a long time, for a very long time. And then when I was on the budget committee, that's when I stepped off from doing that, just so there wouldn't be a conflict of interest as well, so.
And I'll answer the first question in reference to COVID relief, and then Seal's got her answers, and I think they've been submitted around. We didn't get specific money from the state or the feds for welfare assistance. There wasn't like a specific designation. A couple of months ago, we did receive $307,000 from the American Recovery Plan Act, ARPA is what it's called. That money is restricted to 5 areas of use, and one of those uses did fall under an area of public safety and health. And based on how we are interpreting the wording of the grant, which is what the $307,000 is that we believe that we can use a portion of that to offset some of our overage this year. Back in October of 2021, the BOS allowed us to take 125 out of the 307 in theory. It doesn't go back into the line item, but it's to kind of offset the excess in the overhead. And then there was another 30,000, 10,000 for a police department kind of recovery program that falls into the same area and placing people, and then we funded that next year. That money, 125, was March through September. We were not allowed to go back further than March when it came through. In January, I'll be going back to the Board of Selectmen to see what we've spent for October, November, and December, and asking to take that out of the 152 that's left right now. And again, that money is supposed to be for broadband, and there's 5 area categories, and I'm going to apologize, I can't remember them all off the top, but only one of them was, so it's very, very restricted. It's not like it was just money for us to use. So we didn't receive anything in sense for that, but it allows us to use it. The caveat is that we will receive another 307 next year, later in the year, but our first submittal to the audit companies in reference to the money won't be until April, and with some of these grants, they're still writing the rules even while they send the money out. So we're anticipating that we could use it next year to offset some overages, but we won't know until we get this first submittal into April. So, so 125 so far has been applied, and then again, I'll get with Seal and get a report for October, November, December, and ask the board to allow us to take it out of the balance of the 152 right now is sitting for COVID. And from there, then I think I will turn it over to Seal. If they have any your questions.
So.
Well, like.
So the 307 doesn't come at once. I heard you say twice that it was.
No, yeah, it's 2 payments.
Yeah.
We got 307 in 2021.
Okay.
And we'll get 307 in 2022.
Okay, but in 2022, it's all at once in 307. And is that April?
Yeah, and we got it all at once this time too.
Okay.
I mean, they do send it to you all at once, but then every so many months you got to report back how you're spending it to stay straight.
Okay.
Do you have to get approval before you?
No, no, they sent us the money, but this is kind of the oddity, like you're spending it based on interpretation, but you could find out that you send it back in and they say you weren't supposed to spend it on that, which means then you have to go back and fix your books and move some money around. So they're running into the same boat.
Welcome to my world.
Yeah.
I live in that on a daily basis with our housing projects, and I totally understand when you're saying that the grants are just, the rules are just kind of coming to you as you're going.
Yeah.
We've been, at Tri-County Cap, have been dealing with that since the beginning of the pandemic. That first program that they rolled out for housing, they gave us about 6 weeks notice with no leeway whatsoever. Like no lead, I should say, whatsoever. It was just kind of like, here is, it was like $3 million just for our cap or something like that. Spend it in 6 months.
Wow.
But, and then it was like, okay, so we started spending it, and then they had a meeting. No, you can't spend it on this, and this. All right, okay. Then we go on, no, now you need this document, and it just went on and on and on and on for the longest time. We couldn't have been happier when that program ended. And this new one rolled out because we were lucky enough, even though this new one isn't perfect at all. We kind of had a pile of papers to say, hey, look, this is what you did to us last time, don't do that again. When they gave us the money this round, and they kind of listened to a little bit and gave us a little bit more leeway with stuff going into it, but I mean, I completely understand that. It's just like...
You guys are from the same generation I am. I mean, there's no free lunch. So it sounds like there's a lot of money when you hear the news, you know, even trillions being thrown around, but first of all, some of it's not been voted on, some of it's not out there. And even the stuff that may have been voted this week, the rules haven't been written, so I mean, you know.
Yeah, exactly. I think
yeah.
that's why.
Yeah, it's confusing, and I think a
Yeah.
lot of people assume there's just big pots of money out there, and all we have to do is reach in and grab it, and it unfortunately doesn't work that way.
Well, let me know if you find that.
Yeah. Trust me, I'm gonna grab as much as I can first.
And then tell you.
Matt, when you refer to they, who exactly is they?
For the program I'm speaking of, it would be the federal government. That's where we're getting that money from. We get our money from either state or federal grants. We're completely, Tri-County CAP is completely grant funded, 100%. We have 49 programs, I believe, 49 programs, all of them geared towards helping homeless. But it's everything from, you know, the Head Start program, which is our preschool program to help low-income families with daycare so that they can get to work. We have transportation, all different aspects or whatever. So, and it's all grant funded, every last bit of it.
Is it done at arm's length through the mail and it's Washington you're talking to, or is there?
No, it goes right through the state. It comes right down the line to us. It's not really so much coming from Washington. I mean, it is coming from Washington, but they're giving it to.
Yeah. You don't get it direct. There's somebody at the state.
That's right,
Yeah.
and
That's kind of my question.
And I apologize. My understanding of that is definitely on a much broader aspect as opposed to exact details of that kind of stuff. I'm a little more boots on the ground than that is, but that is my understanding. Like you said, that there is someone that it comes to in the state, and then it goes out to us. Because I know that there's 5 CAP agencies in the state of New Hampshire, all throughout the state, and I know that they were all meeting like with the governor before this new program came out and everything to just kind of say, hey, listen, there's a few things some ideas that we have that might make this program be a little more accessible for people, which it has. I think you can attest to the fact that we're helping a lot more people, but they're still doing the same thing to us. It's, from meeting to meeting, it's like, oh, by the way, now you can't do this anymore, or now you can do this, or now we're not allowing this, or now you need to require this, or whatever. So it's just how it goes.
All right, going to the next question. While there are other agencies that receive it, we receive ARP funds, Gopher funds. There's different pots, but we don't get reported to us on who gets them or what those amounts are. What SEAL did do is partner with this organization to help, especially at the height of when our budget was being hit and prior to the ARP coming in, and now between the combination of the two, I guess we seem to have worked out a partnership on that. Approximately 190 individuals have been recipients to date, and
Is that higher still than
Yes.
normal?
Very much so. About double.
About double.
Double.
And is that, can they read multiple times that one recipient can receive aid? Okay,
So that 190 may,
could be
Maybe a
multiple
duplication
duplicates.
of services. We have some clients that come in during the summer. Let's say they showed up in April or May, we house them, we take care of them, they leave in July. And now all of a sudden that fall is here, they're back. For whatever reason, there's different reasons that put them in the situation that they were in before.
Is it strictly housing?
It's a multitude of issues. Some of them come, I know nobody wants to hear this, from out of state.
No, what you talking about? No way.
no, I mean, it could be, where our biggest hit is on the miscellaneous, which is what,
Homelessness.
putting people out in homelessness. Yeah, I mean,
Yep.
welfare could fall into medical assistance, electrical assistance, heating assistance, rent assistance, which is separate from from the homeless, yeah, so but those aren't the line items that we have seen the jump on. Where the jump's been is the miscellaneous assistance, which covers all of the homeless, that we've ended up putting some in some of the motels and that kind of thing.
We also help out with funeral expenses.
Yes, we do.
Yeah, there's a funeral, actually, this year.
We used to budget for 2 funerals.
Yeah, we've only spent $750, so I mean, it's not been a big line item. I mean, your other welfare line items, you know, your medical assistance is $400, your electrical assistance is $5,000, your heating is $2,000, rent assistance is $40, and it's the miscellaneous that we budgeted at $15. That's the one that we've spent 177. Yeah.
Now,
Spent 177.
there's a homeless shelter that serves our area in Lancaster, or there's 2 now?
There's 2.
Where's
that was another reason that I wanted to kind of make sure that we understood. Tri-County Cap is also in charge of the Birch House, which is in Bethlehem. The Birch House used to be, for 20 plus years, was a domestic violence safe haven for women and their children that were fleeing domestic violence, were from Northern Grafton, and were in imminent danger. There was a lot of rules with the funding that came along with that part of the shelter. There were a lot of rules that were going along with it that they had to meet before they would be allowed in the shelter. Well, I don't know if anybody's ever seen the Birch House, but it's this beautiful 8-room farmhouse, I guess you would call it, in the middle of Bethlehem on this beautiful piece of property. And with the ability to house 16 working on 19 people, you know, including children and everything like that, we were sitting at 5 or 6 people regularly all year long. So there was close to 10 beds that were sitting empty all the time. And so Tri-County Cap kind of took a look at our, you know, our mission statement and what it is that we're trying to do. And just like when they gave up Friendship House, because that was the recovery community or treatment community is heading towards a more of a medical model, which is not what Tri-County Cap does. We kind of went our separate ways with there because there were other entities to pick it up. When Tri-County Cap picked it up years ago in the 80s, there was nobody else doing that. It's the same thing with the domestic violence. When Tri-County Cap took on the programs for domestic violence 20 plus years ago, they were the only people around that were doing anything like that. Thank God that is no longer, unfortunately it's necessary, but thank God it is no longer the case that they're the only ones doing it. We were able to hand those services off to other entities in the general area and open up the Birch House to be just an emergency homeless shelter for women and their dependent children. So we have an all women and children's emergency shelter in Bethlehem, and then we have an all men's, which used to be the co-ed homeless shelter for all of North Country. So now it's just the men's. And if there's an intact family, which means father, mother, and the children, and they choose to go to the Tyler Blaine House, we're able to house that as well over there.
Winter fuel heating well assistance, that's a big part of what you do?
At Tri-County Cap?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Absolutely.
How much money is that?
That I wouldn't have the numbers on, unfortunately.
That's a big number.
It is.
6 million.
That, I was just gonna say, here's my CEO.
CEO.
This is the CEO of Tri-County Cap, this
Okay.
Jeannie. She'll have the
You
numbers.
got that number.
I do.
Okay. So when we have heating assistance welfare at $2,000, when does that come into play?
Generally on a weekend, it's an emergency fill. They tend to not realize they're running low. They don't understand they can apply through CAP. There's a lot of reasons.
Okay, but once you give that out, it never comes back.
No, no. And historically, we don't get too many requests for heating.
Yeah, because I mean, I
We get
think
more for
everybody's aware of
electric.
the
Yeah.
Tri-County Cap program,
Right,
and,
right.
you know.
Yeah, at least as of August 31st, we hadn't spent anything on heating.
Well, I know that Seal knows all the different agencies and everyone works well together.
Absolutely.
You know.
I know that she works very close with our outreach. For Bobby Sue, who's in the Northern Grafton area, but I mean, I've also, you know, I know that she's worked with the people in the shelters and just whoever needs, you know, whoever in Tri-County Capture. I know you've worked with a few of the programs that we work with Littleton.
So last night we were at the school and they had some charts on demographics of their students. And they mentioned that there were like 4% of some of their students, I think it was at the high school, are homeless.
What was the term they used, Diane? They had homeless and what was the other half of that term?
Oh,
We weren't supposed to ask questions, so I didn't.
we couldn't ask questions last night. It was a very quick meeting. I'll flip through here and
Yeah,
find
they had
that.
another term
Yeah.
before, but and I was gonna ask him, and I think we talked about, you know, how they define homeless. I think a lot of it has to do with couch surfing or whatever. but
Yeah,
Double
for
ups.
Housing instability, double ups.
Double ups.
What is a double up?
It's exactly what that sounds like. Is one family loses an apartment, and another family says, well, you know, we can squeeze the kids into this room. You guys can sleep on the couch, you know, or it
For
could
a
just be
week or
for
something.
exactly.
Or we just
for-
take your kids and then you go find.
So whatever it
sleep
is,
with
yeah,
another
something,
family.
yeah, it's basically just, you know, two families, or it doesn't have to be a family, you know what I mean? It could be whoever,
Some kind
but
of unit.
two different units living in one place that's not meant for two people to be there.
Till the landlord picks up on it.
Right, and that's where the housing instability term comes, where like, yes, they have a roof over their head, they're not out in the cold, but at any moment, they could be, with literally just a moment's notice of grab your stuff, you're out. Because they have no lease, they have no nothing, they have nothing legally binding them or tying them to where they're staying. And sometimes they're putting, like you said, they're putting the actual tenants in danger of losing their place, because sometimes it is in rental agreements how many people are allowed in the apartment or.
And then the other alternative is the landlord will charge $100 more a month per person on top of whatever the current rent.
So last night we found out, according to their demographics,
Yes.
that Lakeway, 11% of the students are homeless. At Daisy Bronson, 4.9%, and at the high school, 4.6%. So this was kind of startling to me, because you basically, I mean, children and learning, and how do you deal with it, and who contacts you from the school?
Can I ask a question? Who did the study? Where are the numbers coming from?
It's coming from, I guess, the school, but that's all I have. This is the information that they handed. Would you like this? For that? It's in there, I'll give it to you. I'll get another one for you.
So, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
So I was just wondering, how does it work? Do those parents know where to go? I mean, I'm sure they know. How does it work?
There's a million different ways. We do our best at Tri-County Cap to let every entity know what it is that we do. You know, and that you know, we have programs that we put out at different areas that list all of the programs that we run at Tri-County Cap. You know, there is the homeless and substance use information hotline for the state of New Hampshire, which is 211. Tri-County Cap is the hub for the North Country for 211. So when anybody calls for homelessness, calls 211 in the North Country, it gets sent to our shelter. Actually, it gets sent to the Tyler Blaine House. That staff does an assessment with that person to figure out what are your needs. Are you actually homeless? Are you in danger of being homeless? Do you have a roof over your head right now? Do we need to get you into an emergency shelter or into a motel, depending on what your location is? Where are you? Okay, you are in the Northern Grafton area, and you have a roof over your head tonight, so I'm gonna give you my outreach person's information tonight. And in the morning, you're gonna call Bobby Sue, who is the Northern Grafton person. You're gonna call Bobby Sue, and Bobby Sue is gonna speak to you about seeing if there's any kind of programs that you might qualify for that can help to end your whether you're about to get evicted or you're couch surfing and you need a place, and so we need to help you with first and last, or whatever it is. They'll do an assessment to find out what your needs are and kind of go from there. So, I mean, as far as, there are some, they're not called social workers, I'm not sure, I can't remember the term. I'm sorry, Jeannie, go ahead.
Go ahead.
May I?
Sure.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Each school is required to have a McKinney-Vento, that's what it's called, coordinator, liaison, who works with homeless families to hook them up with services, make sure that that child has adequate transportation to get to their school, wherever that may be, and coordinate services, even things like school supplies and backpacks, and make sure that that child is properly prepared to go to school. And we work with those coordinators. I mean, it's been a while since I've been on the front line, but
But you also will find
That's how
in
that
some
works.
cases, parents don't reach out
Exactly.
because of embarrassment,
Yes.
or the kids don't want people to know that they're homeless. I mean, so so the numbers are probably not accurately reporting what the problem is.
Could be worse.
Yes.
Two questions if I could. One, so if you have those situations, and obviously where we have several towns all close together, do you keep the kid in the same school?
if that's what the McKinney-Vento Act requires.
And what is that again?
McKinney-Vento Act.
McKinney-Vento.
Spell it for us.
McKinney,
MCK.
M-C, capital K-I-N-N-E-Y,
EY.
thank you. Vento, V-E-N-T-O.
Yep.
Probably the
And-
name of the sponsors.
Yeah, basically.
Sounded
And if,
Asian to
let's say
me.
we get
I
at the
know.
shelter, a homeless family from Lisbon,
Yeah.
it would, the coordinator at Lisbon, would work with us or, work with Littleton to ensure that there's transportation so that child can stay in their community, in their school where they already have their support, et cetera.
Is that fairly new, that McKinney?
No.
It's been around for?
Yeah, yes.
Does the school systems know it?
Yes. Yes.
I just
I
got
assume
the,
the school systems have an obligation to.
Well, that's what I said,
report
no,
that.
they're
Yes.
required, mandatory, they have a
Yes.
coordinator at the school.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just get the impression that these people are in cars and the kids are doing their homework by,
Yeah.
You know?
Some are.
they are,
I mean,
yeah.
the numbers where I'm from are higher than that.
Yeah.
My wife's a high school teacher, and there's a significant proportion of her students that are homeless. The families are split up, they're couch surfing, there are some people living in their cars, the parents may live in the car, the kid may live with a neighbor on a couch. I mean, but there is no welfare programs, there's no assistance programs in Florida like you have here on the town level, so that's why it's probably double the numbers than what you're seeing.
And maybe the second half of my question is, go more to the selectmen, but however many years ago when Brian Ward brought this problem to the public attention and basically got lambasted by the school system for how dare you mention that or whatever. Okay. Out of all that, once the school finally came to the reality that it was an issue and that it was having an impact on education and it had nothing to do with poor kids not being able to learn and not being as bright as more endowed kids, financially endowed, that has to do with opportunity and challenges. But with, recently in some of the paper articles, I mean, where do we stand as far as subsidized housing in Littleton? I mean, it kind of been either an official or unofficial moratorium on it for a while. I mean, everything is happening at Hitchner. Is that all going to be free market, or is that going to be?
And, well, even that is studio and one bedroom, so in all honesty, it wouldn't address this population at all. I'm from the outsider's perspective, I think they're looking at as, I hate to say it, but young professional, single.
No, that's
Maybe schools, depending
No,
upon
no.
any of the schools in the area,
No.
housing, so it won't be affordable housing.
No, okay, and Head is still the driver of affordable housing in the area, and are they trying to spread that footprint out to Easton, Franconia, Sugar Hill? I know they did some in
They
Bethlehem.
have a project in Bethlehem. That's the only-
Well-
Hills, they have completed that.
Well,
The one-
also,
yeah, sorry.
also going on the ahead, so Senator Shaheen, I don't know if Senator Shaheen, there was an article in the paper not too long ago how she was able to get funding for certain projects in New Hampshire. And one of those projects, it mentioned AHEAD, and it mentioned that it was a property to take care of low-cost housing in Coas and Grafton County, and it was on a property that would be giving 17 acres to a elementary school. Guess where that is going to be?
The cause of charity.
Yes. So we know that we are going to have more housing. But I also, you wonder about the state, and in our study, this is kind of a long, in our study that we did, the summer study that we gave away our whole life for the whole summer, and we looked at statistics, oh my gosh. We found that a lot of the services that are needed by school systems are in the southern part of the state, and that we try to replicate so much up here for special education and a lot of those things, whereas those schools and those services are available in the southern part of the state.
Yeah, outside the school system.
Outside of the school system. And so it is a bus ride, whereas for us, we would have to tuition the students and they would have to stay there. So I'm now becoming a little bit more cognizant, I guess, that a lot of services aren't as available in the North Country as they are in the southern part of the state. And I have wondered about this in particular.
I don't know that it's not as, that they're not there. They're not as accessible. They're available, they're not as accessible. Because you could have somebody come into her office in the southern part of the state, and she could say, okay, you need this, 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 and this to help you move on. Come with me. And walk down the street and hit all 4 of those marks. Whereas here, it's like,
that's what I mean.
Yeah, you gotta get on the mountain and yell.
That's
like,
exactly
to
what I mean.
Be able to get there. Like, they're there.
Yeah.
It's just to be able to get that person to that.
And then we all talk about affordable housing, but nobody wants it in their backyard.
Well, and
because there's a connotation.
There is.
That there's something bad with affordable housing.
Well, obviously there's, I think, now a recognized burden or challenge that comes with it. And I think the only thing that Brian's point was that obviously it'd be nice if that challenge were born somewhat equally amongst communities instead of just.
But then I got to thinking, what the heck? Let's just embrace our role and make it the best for these kids. And because it's gonna happen, it's coming. We might as well embrace it. And
kids don't choose to be born into poverty.
They don't
choose to have a drug-dependent parent. They don't choose to lose their home. I mean, so yeah, I agree. I mean,
just embrace it.
Yeah, we
so
can say
coming.
Blame other people for life choices. They don't get to make those choices.
It's coming, but I also wonder how we as the North Country just kind of say something to our state government, because the funding comes through the state government, I'm assuming, and we don't have the same resources per population as they do in the southern part of the state. How do we speak up about that?
It's our ongoing battle.
We scream it from the top of our lungs every chance we get.
But we have to too.
Yeah.
Yes, and our representatives, are very cognizant of that, and I think they do really, really well at articulating that the North Country is very different from the southern part of the state. And, it's odd to me that New Hampshire does not have a rural classification, yet 2/3 of the state, which is what Tri-County Cap covers, is rural. You simply cannot get there from here. Can you back up to, why don't you join us at the table, please? Oh, thank you.
What does a rural classification do that, how would that change us?
It opens up money, and it it,
More at the federal level.
yes,
than
at the
it does
federal,
now, yes.
at the federal level, it opens up money. I mean, let's face it, providing a service up here in the North Country costs more than it does, say, in Manchester, exactly for what Matt said. We can't walk out the door with someone, we can't hand them a bus pass or, you know, walk them around the corner to unemployment or any of those things. We have to have staff that drive them. We have to hook them up with that transportation. You know, it takes forever to get from point A to point B. I love when folks from down south come to visit us up here because it takes an entire day to go through our whole territory. So when you say, you know, well, this service is only available here, this service is only available there, to me, that is rural. And it costs more money, and we should be getting more money than our southern, or at least as much as our southern counterpoints. Even though we don't have the same population, we have the geography to contend with. So that's always, you know,
Well, we
the
found that
conversation
out.
for us.
We found that out too, didn't we, Steve, on a lot of the, you know, so the cost per education study that we did,
Yes.
you know, cost of education that we did a couple of years ago, you know, we're just trying to replicate those services that are easily had down in the southern part of the state. We're trying to redo them up here because if we were to send a student away, that's a hardship. They're not with their families. So I'm speaking to the choir, aren't I? So, I mean, I don't know what we do, but anyways, I guess I just had to say that.
Well, one thing that I've learned in the past 4 or 5 years as a health officer and also as a substitute at the high school is that a good 25 to 30% of the school population is coming out of the head apartments. So if we didn't have a head here, our school population would drop, and that 25% I'm just guessing at. But we have a lot of kids that are coming out of the head apartments. The resentment for having a head here is based on having what was perceived to be too much. With too many buildings were being put up, and there was that issue that Brian raised some years ago. On the other side, our population in SAU 84 would be smaller if we didn't have affordable housing units here.
So,
I'm just not sure what it is.
Did that study say how many students qualify for free and reduced lunch?
yes, yeah, it is, it's here, yeah.
And they have been having issues getting people to sign up for it. It used to be that they didn't want to sign up for it.
Yeah, again, embarrassment.
Well, that's right, but now it's, part of it is just because of everybody getting free lunch, there's no incentive to, so. Which is why, actually, Don, I think it was at your urging with Senator Hennessy right last year that she actually submitted that bill to basically extend the free and reduced lunch figures to bring them forward.
Right.
Because
To use the previous year's count because with COVID, they didn't fill out the forms, and so then it left us with a deficit, you know. So, I mean, I learned by going through the state adequacy aid formula, that is a trip and a half if you ever want to have. I remember sitting down trying to figure out why we had less money coming in, and I went through the formula, and then I realized it was because our student population had declined, and it was $46,000 less, but $46,000 in a small school system is a chunk of change. So, you know, so you have all of these formulas and parts of it, and every bit of it is so important, and someone has to be on top of it to make sure that, you know, I said throw a pizza party on the day that they take the enrollment count at the throughout the school, so everyone wants to be there. You know, just do that, because 5 students less can make a difference. So, anyways, yes. So let's see, free and reduced lunch. Let's see, where did I see that? At 36% at our Daisy Bronson, almost 40% at the high school, and let's see if I can quickly find, free and reduced 40% at the
That's telling you
elementary.
then that there's 40% of the families that are one paycheck away from homelessness.
Yes. Yes. So I guess this has kind of gone far from the budget process here that we're talking about.
Seal didn't expect any different,
No, I've been to too many of these.
No, I think, I mean, from a staff perspective, is our job is to present you real numbers, okay? I mean, you have a state law that says we have to take care of these people, and so it's not like you can budget 25 and say the 25's gone, it's no longer our problem. And so I know in the past, they've reduced that because, yes, I'm gonna be very honest, you can reduce $100,000, $200,000 out of her budget, maybe you can drop another 40 cents off the tax bill. But they're only paying for it again
The next time around.
on the next time around because we can't say the budget's empty. So when it got cut to $25,000 and let's go to that 115, it was 15,000 for the miscellaneous and we've spent almost 178.
Well, last year, during this
Yeah.
process, we spoke out as a budget committee, didn't we? Seal basically had told us, forewarned us, that it was going to be significantly more. And we spoke out that they needed to increase it in the budget line, and they said no. And that they would use surplus to do that. But with $500,000 in surplus or whatever it is now, that, to me, I've always said we need to raise that up as well. I'm on the record.
You and I are on the same page, but I follow my boss's directions.
I know. We have.
I always
because-
believe in a safety net and a good safety net.
A good safety net, and it's because a rainy day, what we think is a rainy day is really not a rainy day.
A rainy day fund was $1.9 million at the wastewater treatment plant.
Yes.
Okay? Thank goodness they had those reserves, and that just gets us through the initial, knock on wood. Something else doesn't happen between now and January, so and then I said to the department heads, if you find, like, they have their budgets, and sometimes they're going to expend more, and sometimes they're not. If you know that another fellow department head is in need, you need to help that fellow department head out. I can tell you that's how we budget now. I don't know how they did it before, but I believe in everybody being aware of what each other department's budget is, because there's only a certain amount of size pie that you're going to give us.
Yes.
And sometimes we have to debate internally on who gets the bigger piece of the pie. And if SEAL knows and fire and police
Exactly.
at least have an understanding,
Of the
then
other.
sometimes they're easier to say, okay, I'll take the smaller slice this time and let's add that slice to that area.
We can
Doesn't
put it
always
off for
work,
2
but
more years.
I try not to put department against department so that the common goal is to be as efficient and as transparent, but also to meet the needs.
So
So Jim, I assume that includes the school as well. 'Cause
Well,
sometimes down the school can be.
That's a new one for me. See, in Florida, schools are completely separate. They are their own government. They're funded at the county level. So I've met with the superintendent, but haven't been through a budget process with them. So I'm going to be very honest. That is absolutely.
Well, I could say the same thing to
Yeah.
them too,
Yeah.
because I know that can get.
Well, okay, so what we have this year, and this budget process, Steve has more of a history of what this budget committee had, how it was founded and how it formed over the years. But way back when I first got on the school board, Don Jetton had basically said, the money comes out of the same pocket, one pocket, taxpayer, one pocket. And so both entities need to be talking to each other. And Milton and I were on the school board at the same time, and we used to go to all the meetings, didn't we, Steve?
Mm-hmm.
We went to all, because we needed to know what was happening on the town side. That's when we were on the school side. And it's kind of broken down. And so that's why that very first meeting, I want everyone to attend, That's the craziness of that first meeting, and say, these are the things that we are facing this year because we all need to work together. This year, we have 4 contracts coming up. 4 contracts. And so we all have to kind of look at everything because we have 4 contracts coming up. So, you know, that has to be on everyone's radar. It can't just be your 2 contracts on your radar and their 2 contracts on their radar. So, and then, but getting back to SEAL, sorry SEAL, you've increased it. You've increased the welfare, correct?
Yes.
To what you think it will be.
Worst case scenario.
The 353.
353 or
354.
350.
354.
But keep in mind, that's the bottom line for the department. The real key line item is the miscellaneous assistance welfare line item. That's the one that is.
The 190,000.
Yes, I mean, that's the, because the others are kind of within their ranges. There's a few dollars here and
The
there.
rent is going to jump.
Yeah, I mean, we've had this
to
discussion
avoid evictions
with the
and-
moratorium. Now, there is one caveat to that. If it's a federal mortgage property, they were bound by the federal moratorium. If I were a landlord and I owned my rental property and it wasn't mortgaged, or it wasn't mortgaged through
FHA.
FHA, then I wasn't bound. So what we don't know is based on the rental units that are out there.
Right.
You know, are they privately held? Are they mortgaged? And if they're mortgaged and then that moratorium goes away, that's when we'll see the increase. If we have less mortgaged, maybe we might not see the jump because that eviction already was articulating on a natural basis as a landlord, hey, I gave you 2 months, you've got to get out. And then Seal ended up with them, and then Tri-County ended up with them until they transitioned somewhere else. But we're kind of anticipating the fact that the moratoriums have expired, and even the state ones, you know, that there may be an increase. And while counting people coming to the window isn't scientific, but I do know the phone calls within the last 2 weeks, both to Seal and what Vicki has handled. I mean, I just know just from my visual part from where I work from, it's increased. And I'm not saying that's substantial, but if it's 190 bodies now and they've gotten 20 bodies in the last 2 weeks.
So how does the health officer play into this?
Really doesn't, unless we have a homeless person who, I get calls periodically. The health officer position outside of the cities is not a credentialed position. Anyone can hold this position. All you need is a driver's license, you know, high school diploma. So this is not a clinical position, but I'll periodically, as Seal gets late night calls from the police, I'll get a call periodically. And usually, for the elderly, it's the Division of Elder Services at the state level. They have social workers that follow these people primarily. I'll get a call from the police when we have someone down on Saranac Street in one of the vacant buildings down there. But it's really not a public health, it's not a public health issue per se, it's an exact case issue that this person needs help. So
you're more,
it doesn't feed into that.
you're more public health in general than in case?
Yeah, no
Okay.
caseload, right?
Okay.
Because this position doesn't carry those credentials.
This is
I
kind of
carry
like code
personal,
enforcement.
But our position doesn't.
Pardon?
His is like code enforcement. I don't know
Yeah.
if you use that term, but
Yeah,
violations of
yeah.
housing, setbacks, fences,
Okay.
property in disrepair, maybe a
Yeah,
restaurant or
cold
something,
water,
complaint or
cold water.
whatever, but yeah, not kneeling with individuals.
So we have $155,000 left that hopefully will get us to April when we get more funding, so to speak, if the need arises.
Yeah.
And so that's where we're at. You've increased the budget to reflect what has been happening. So that's all we can really do at this point.
It's because the state, this is one of the areas among many where the live free and die or die context comes into play. Concord doesn't want to deal with this as a state issue, homeless people. So it's up to each town to address their issue. We may get some money from the state, but the control of this, because this is not a state that has a strong county system, it's at each town level. So that's why in Nashua and Portsmouth and Manchester, they have large units of people, of professional people working. We're under a different RSA here, and the rural communities have uncredentialed people and no funding for the most part. And so we have to deal with it, and we're using motels. Tomorrow night when my wife and I land in San Diego at 8 o'clock their time, 11 o'clock our time, and we turn right and come out, there's going to be a strip with tents that go on for 2 or 3 miles. I mean, that's one other way to deal with the issue, but
In warmer weather.
Yeah, it's
warmer weather, right?
Climate makes a difference, yeah.
But they do it in New York too, and if they get into a heating system, portable heating systems. But in point of fact, we don't do that. We don't have that volume, and we do have motels that, as Seal will tell you, that we put people in. We do have, as health officer, we have concerns about some of the motel operations, and we've addressed that periodically with them. When I get back, we had a discussion we have a meeting of the fire chief, police chief, myself, and the public works director on every other Wednesday. And we were talking about concerns we have, which may want us to prompt an investigation of one of the motels that we're currently using quite a bit in terms of the conditions inside the motels. That's a health officer
The code,
situation,
yeah.
But we've been fortunate enough to be able to have someone like Seal who can find places for people in local motels. But this is the first year where we're really showing the real number for some time. Instead of the 25,000 that was budgeted, you know, it's quite a bit more than that, and that's going to raise our overall bottom line somewhat accordingly.
And the last question was, you know, people are creatures of habit. How come the community and local government will reduce demand for local town-funded welfare assistance from historical levels? The cynical side, I could say, is ask the health officer to close down 2 motels in town and say that they're unsafe and can't house people. But we know that can't happen.
Yeah.
But that only would put more people out on the street. But the trouble is, some of the reason why you're getting them is because we have motels, and some of the smaller communities around us don't. So that's why it's there. So I mean, I say the one with tongue in cheek. I didn't mean that in the sense of, but we're a place
I
where
totally understand,
they know where to come and get a room, because they may not be able to get one in one of the smaller towns.
I think thinking more strategically though, yeah, we have the hotels and we're gonna get them, I get it sounds like. But in the end, the success of our local economy is going to help us keep people employed, give people more opportunity and all of that. So I think wherever we can, we should be encouraging entrepreneurship that's profitable and gaining, but I know it's easy to say, I recognize that, but still, it's really the right answer in the long run.
Right,
No.
exactly, yeah. So,
But there are people that also know the system, and they have clientele. So
Oh,
I
sure.
mean, when the phone call comes up or somebody walks in with a piece of paper, they have the exact paragraph that they need to tell you.
Oh, yeah.
So there is a part of, you
there
know,
will be abusers
Yeah.
of the system, but you have to also think that one of those kids could have been Colin Powell, right?
yes.
It's not a perfect world.
No.
I can say, just to add in as a practice for Tri-County Cap, yes, we do utilize the motels in Littleton quite a bit because they will work with us, but we always, if somebody decides to come here because that's where we can put them, they don't become Littleton's responsibilities just because they're in that town. We always go to the town that they came from, and we try to work with them with Tri-County Cap's programs
that's
and
very
everything
important.
like that. Yeah,
That's important.
I can tell you, because I work with the people that do this job, that it's not like just we do the same thing in Lancaster. If we bring them to the homeless shelter in Lancaster, it doesn't automatically make the town of Lancaster responsible for anything that goes on with that person. The town that they came from is actually, by law, who is responsible for helping to put them. So we make sure, so I know, that you're still gonna have people that come here without our help and that may transplant and try and get that help, but I can tell you as far as if they're working with us and we happen to bring them up here, strictly because we're having trouble finding other motels, it does not become your problem. It does not become the town's
The
responsibility.
devil's in the details, and of course, if there's a mistake made, it's gonna be in favor of, okay, they're in Littleton, right?
Well, I mean, yeah.
Or if
it's-
somebody else puts you on a bus and sends you to Littleton,
Yeah,
and they don't go through them,
right, that's what I mean.
Then,
then
right.
that town effectively got themselves off the hook.
So there are ways that it's still going to affect you in that way, but I was just speaking on as far as any of the residents that Tri-County CAP happens to deal with. If we are bringing them to Bethlehem, Lancaster, Littleton, wherever it is, it doesn't automatically become your responsibility. The Tri-County, I mean, they're their own responsibility, but you know what I mean.
So let's look at it. So what is the unemployment rate right now for Littleton?
The 2.6%?
Oh, wow.
So it's very low.
That's almost considered full employment.
Well, which calculation of the unemployment rate? Because there's those who are not seeking work that could be working, so if you count
Probably not a
those.
true number.
Yeah, I mean, there's a federal breakdown on that, but if you get an unemployment rate typically 3% or below, I mean, that's almost classified as full
Right.
employment because that gap then is in there.
Right.
Now, yes, you see some of the signs on here, hiring at 15, but I also hear people who say they've applied and they go through that, and so it sounds like everybody's hiring, but maybe they're not as hiring the level that they are, or maybe there's so many that's available, they can be much stricter on who they're picking, but so it doesn't seem to be that while you may see some places with job openings, it doesn't necessarily equate to a job.
Is that employment rate, is that calculated on the population of Littleton, or is it somehow the calculation doesn't segment out Littleton itself, because some of the jobs available are from, there's people from Sugar Hill or Bethlehem or Dalton or Lisbon or whatever coming in, and how is that accounted for?
Usually unemployment rate's done by the Fed and the state, but they may break that down and give it to areas, but we don't track. I don't have any mechanism to tell you, what it is. Carrie must know a number, maybe from talking with officials and reading, we know the numbers have been dropping,
It's just a process question
yeah,
for me,
yeah.
how do they actually calculate it?
Yeah.
I think it's based on address, and it's based on each community. There's a rate for Littleton specifically. We have a employment office here in town.
Yeah.
Pointing to something from 20 years ago.
It's moved.
That's the
Flashbacks.
That's the care center.
I think a lot of it ties to a census district, that's where a lot of definition comes in reference to your
So it's actually,
demographics.
it's physical address though, is the.
That's what they base it on.
Yeah. Thank you.
So I know that we're gonna wrap this up, but
Want to go to welfare?
yeah, for welfare. But I would like to know,
Are we gonna hear from Sina?
poor Seal, did we just do all your talking for you here?
That's fine, I'm not a good talker anyway,
Well, I
so.
mean, I-
She told me on the way over, she said, I don't want to talk, you can talk for me.
It's always nice to get Seal's synopsis, if you would, of what the evolution of the job is and new challenges and where she thinks we're heading and.
Well, the past 2 years, I don't think any of us could have imagined what they were gonna be like. And to be blunt, it's been pure hell. 7 days a week, you never know when you're gonna get a call.
You're making these decisions at home on the weekend or at night or?
Yeah, 12:30, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, you get
Write
a
it down,
call.
a piece of paper, take it to work on Monday morning
And do the paperwork after the fact. But the problem is, I don't see any solution. I don't know if you guys from CAP do, because there are no apartments. There are no resources to house these people on a permanent basis. Once this is started, it's like snowballing. I have no answers for you except to say, budget for the worst case scenario, because who knows what's going to happen. And we can just pray that the feds will reimburse us.
It's
That's all
like
we can do.
musical chairs.
Yeah,
You get one family that's homeless, everybody's circling for an apartment, and sure, that apartment opens up, we put another homeless family in there, but we still have to deal
get
with the
12
family
more
that.
behind them,
Just go,
yeah.
but it just got voted out
Yeah,
of there,
and they just,
or-
you just
yeah.
lose your ticket in line or something, it's
It's
And
sad.
it
is
It really
sad.
is sad.
it's sad.
And Tri-County kept playing like musical towns, cause we're just kinda like,
Right.
okay, you're homeless here, oh, we found a place over here that's open, let's get you in there, or whatever, you know what I mean? But they're just going from one to the other.
How does that happen? What causes them to go from one place to another? What evicts them from one place to another?
Oh,
It's a
how long do
million.
you have?
Yeah.
It's a
I'll give you
We
the
gotta be
really
out in
short,
that.
the really short and sweet answer. It's going on 3 years now, I believe. We operate on what's called a critical time intervention, which is an evidence-based model where we get a case manager in there through our homeless outreach program. We hook people up with, their health issues, they need to see doctors, they have behavioral health issues, mental health issues. All of those things contribute to their inability to remain housed. So we can put someone in housing, but if they don't have the tools or the skill set to maintain that housing, we're just gonna see them again in 6 months when they're kicked out. So we've been working with this model to really get people stabilized within the community, wraparound services so that they keep that housing. We don't wanna see them again in 6 months. SEAL doesn't wanna see them. We want them to be successful. So those are some of the issues, and probably the greatest one is substance use disorder and mental health disorders that are barriers to people remaining in their permanent housing because they become problematic.
So,
Is it more mental health or drugs, or which would you say is the most acute?
I would, it's tough.
They go
It's
hand
sort
in
of
hand.
like which came
Yeah, 'cause
first, the
drugs
chicken
is
or the
mental
egg.
health.
They go hand in hand.
Yeah.
They go hand in hand because
so what
it's-
percentage of your homeless are not there because of some kind of
Well, that's increased.
issue?
Yes.
Over the past 2 years.
Well, that's what I
greatly
mean. I mean,
increased.
there are some that are just legitimately out of work and
Yes.
they don't,
Misfortune has been befallen them, they've lost their income, or their hours have been reduced, or
Is
their
it
business
50%?
closed.
Do you think 50% or?
I'd say more like 30.
Yeah,
And it depends on the time of year too.
yep.
So
Right now,
it's
you're
high.
going to see more people who have been homeless because of adjunct issues, mental health, substance use. They've been out in the campgrounds, and that's been fine for when it's been warmer, but now that it's getting colder, we're gonna see them. They're gonna be looking for something different. We're gonna see them in shelter, we're gonna see them looking for, other arrangements.
So one final question for me anyways. How do you connect with the schools? Do you go in and personally introduce yourself and check in every once in a while and say, I'm here, just so they know who you are, because there's turnover in school systems and sometimes there's a new person and, that sort of thing. I'm just thinking about those poor kids. So how do we connect with them to say, how can we help you?
I actually cannot answer that. It's been from the specific reason that it's been quite some time since I've been on the front lines, and I am not sure. Maybe Matt can provide some insight on that with the outreach folks. But if we don't, it's a great suggestion, and you're right. We should. We
Well,
should make sure we're calling that liaison and saying, hey, we're here, here's my phone number, call me when you have a family.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
I know that there's a lot of, statewide, you know, as much as the southern part of the state is so different from us, there's some things that we all kind of do together, and I know that part of that is, there's a lot of committees. You know, I'm always sitting on a Zoom for one committee or another, and a lot of the they call them SAPs, I know are one part of what works in the school, and those are the student
Assistance program.
Professionals, or program, okay, yeah, whatever it is. Anyways, I know that they get invited to these committees, and I know that a lot of the people that are the representatives for the McKinney-Vento are part of those committees. To say that we go in there specifically for that reason, to introduce ourselves, I wouldn't lie and say yes, that's something that we go about doing. To say that we're out of touch with those people would be another lie as well, because our lanes just cross so much that, you know, even with the turnovers, somebody else in that school still knows, usually, like, hey, I just ran into this, oh, that's right, call so-and-so at Tri-County Cap, or whatever it is. Our lanes just kind of cross so much, so as Jeannie said, that is a great idea to look a little further into, to make sure that that's out there. But in the 4 years or so that I've been kind of handling a lot of this stuff, I haven't really run into anything where they say, oh, we're an SAP, or you know, a McKinney-Vento person would say, oh, we didn't even know Tri-County Cap existed, or we didn't know who to call, or we didn't know that. We've done, especially with outreach and with our town welfare officers and just town managers in general, our outreach workers are out there on a regular basis making those kind of introductions to any kind of town or city officials that are working, so that they know, you know, that our goal, I know the director, I'm the director of the shelters, but the director of outreach, I know that her goal is for her outreach workers to walk down the street and everybody just go, oh, there's Bobby Sue, she does outreach for Tri-County Cap. So she's tried to get them into as many places throughout the towns, police stations, fire stations, welfare offices, town offices, wherever they possibly can be, so that they have our information, they have our contact information. So I think that, again, we haven't specifically hit that point, but I think that the outreach for Tri-County Cap has done a really good job of getting their contact information out there to say, hey, listen, at the very least, we can push you in the right direction. You know, sometimes they'll call us and it's not even for a housing program, but it is a program that Tri-County Cap uses, so we can give them the right directions, you know what I mean, for whatever it is.
If you get them in housing, it should be stable. There needs to be an income to go with that. And you hear the term Section 8 housing? What is Section 8 housing?
That means it's subsidized by the government, and someone only pays a percentage, usually 30% of their total income goes towards their rent. That's, and
Rent,
people,
light, heat, water,
yeah.
the whole package?
Yes. And I think when you talk about, you know, ahead and you talk about affordable housing, I know we ran into this in Bethlehem with the Lloyd Hills project, that people get subsidized housing and workforce housing or affordable housing confused. And, you know, thinking, oh, we're gonna get, you know, a bunch of folks in here that we find undesirable, when the truth of the matter is affordable income housing, you have to have, through, say, an AHEAD program, you have to have an income of at least 40,000
You're
to be
talking
eligible.
affordable is police,
Yes,
fire, teachers.
yes.
I mean, people don't realize
Yes.
that those are the
Yes.
people that can't find housing.
Yes.
Yeah, we know
Yeah.
that, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Can I raise a
So-
question?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Sure.
This line item's going up by 220%, from 110,000 last year to 354,000. You and I and Steve, we've lived through the petition from the floor to reduce the overall budget. And there's another issue here that we're going to have to prepare for. Remember when the question came up, and it sometimes came from this committee, as to the criteria for labeling a person as in need of special help at school. As that population grew, the cost for serving that population grew as well. And so the whole coding issue and the criteria around coding. How does somebody get coded? How does somebody get into a motel? What are the criteria that we use? Because this is going to come up. I mean, when we consciously decided not to put in 25,000, but to put in the real number, what we're obligated to do at this point, and you know, hopefully when this committee agrees to our budget, and this is in here, we all need to be aware of what is it that we're looking at, because I can see somebody standing up and making a motion at the deliberative session to reduce the bottom line budget by X, and this is it. And they can't point to that because they know they can't go into the line items.
Well, they can point at it, they just know it won't necessarily go there.
I'm sorry?
They can point to it, but they know they can't necessarily.
Right,
Make
but
it go
we've
there,
been at
yeah.
deliberative sessions where in fact they did go there. We have a $750,000.
It's gonna stick out,
Right,
like you
it's gonna
say.
stick out, and just like, you know, I wasn't here for this, but just like a couple of the other public works is up quite a bit, you know, and these are all legitimate costs. I'm
It's not
not
gonna
raising,
change
you know,
the
legitimate question
or
here.
the outcome.
But we're gonna have
It's
to
just gonna
think
make it
through
worse.
how we're going to defend the real number when we're at the deliberative session, because this is a big, big jump. And we're just simply being, not to say that we weren't honest before, but this was always an item that could be moved around a wee bit, I guess, in terms of the budget planning. We can't do that anymore because of the pressure here that we're under as a town, as other towns are in terms of housing people. So it's just something that we have to think about.
Well, the other thing too is, you know, someone's gonna say, well, the unemployment is 2.9, you know, and, you know, they should be able to find work and be able to afford their housing, right? And then they're gonna say, well, we don't want any low-cost housing coming in because this is what the type of people that are attracted to the area.
Yeah, it's that,
You know.
it's that tension, and it's the tension
Yeah.
that you made me think of it when, around the Lloyd Hill project, the tension of having this population here.
Mhm.
A lot of our population are people that are using drugs and are of various kinds that wind up needing motel rooms during the wintertime in particular. We need to be able to think through how we're going to defend all that. I'm not saying that we do that tonight, but clearly this is an area that we're going to have to do some thinking.
Well, I think the pandemic, though, I think that might make people,
Yeah, I hope so. I agree.
yeah,
That may be.
take a stance. They'll be more receptive to, you know, what we have to do, yeah.
I think ultimately, I agree with that COVID comment. I think you can get some mileage out of that as a defense. But I think ultimately, people are gonna say, okay, we have this program. This is what I think they're thinking. If we have this program, shouldn't we see progress over time in reduction of numbers? That'll be really at the base of what they're asking. And kind of, they're sort of right.
But it's there. If you look at it, the decrease, if you look at the months in that miscellaneous, the last 4 months, July, August, September, and October, are down by 2/3 of what she was spending.
Where are you, Matt? I don't.
Yeah, we don't
we
have
don't
this.
have
We don't have this.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So,
I'm on my own special page, apparently.
yeah, here, I'll send this down to you guys. You can share.
I can share that one if you want to look. If you look where it says miscellaneous,
Miscellaneous, all right.
Miscellaneous motels.
yes.
So is there a lag in the numbers, or are those right up to date?
Those are up to date,
All right.
except for this month. I haven't
Yeah.
booked in this month, but right to the end of October, that's
Well,
where we're
that's
at.
really progress. That's good progress.
That's
although
not
winter-
alone. The
winter-
progress was made because of these
Because of
people in this room.
these stepped in. So they basically
Yeah.
offloaded what was being the burden, and there's only so much
Right.
money that they're gonna have too. So, I mean, we can't assume that they're gonna be able to pick up 100%.
Could we get a copy of that?
Sure you can. I'll email it to
Yeah, yeah.
you
just-
tomorrow.
I'm happy with that.
Well, I can-
Go ahead. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
It is, I
But
was
we're
so
moving
happy.
into the winter months, and
What's
so
that?
I was so
we're gonna start
happy,
that
but now I'm
cycle
afraid it's
again.
gonna-
So.
But it's not. It's not.
Okay,
It's just that
So if you have a
okay.
candidate or family, okay,
All
and
that means
you
is we have to
can
revise
find them in a
part
file.
of the system between you and
There's like a little section.
That's all it
on
means.
it.
Okay, that's all. So
Well, it could be if
you may
they
have to pick up
qualify.
a few things that are back
That's,
right now.
But not
But going
necessarily,
forward,
it
if we can
depends.
revise
Yeah,
that
I've
What do they
system.
done
need
a
to
couple of
qualify?
invoices for
I
previous months
actually
that you guys
do
had to
not know.
retract or something.
We don't do that, that's through separate programs. They would have to go through HUD for that. You know, we have, Tri-County CAP has various programs to assist people, whether it's, you know, getting their first month's rent, getting their, you know, security deposit taken care of. You know, we've got a new rent program now that will help us pay it forward for them while they get stabilized. But we don't do the subsidizing HUD housing.
But at some point in time, they need a job or jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Who gets them the jobs?
We can assist them with that.
Okay.
Certainly helping with their job, you know, their job skills, et cetera, or assisting them with other benefits that they qualify for.
So I guess one of my follow-up questions to the school system, because our process has been, it's the same process that as we have with the town, is that we get a department or we get information and then we submit a slew of questions. Thank you for pulling this together. But, you know, so I'm wondering if those numbers, although I'm getting an inclination that they're not factual or actual, because for the homeless students in our school system, if they feel that that's increased because of COVID, because of this year. So we need to really ask that question of them. But I would really feel much better leaving this meeting if one of you would go to the school system.
Oh, absolutely.
Oh, you can be sure.
Well,
When I
happen.
said that was a great idea, by
that means
tomorrow,
we're doing it. That means we're doing
by the
it.
time I'm in the car, I'm going to be texting the program director to say, please reach out.
Yep.
Please contact the McKinney-Vento liaisons. Make sure they know how to find us.
And just
Get
say
your
that the budget committee was very concerned with the homeless number of students in the school system, and that we had asked you to make sure that you contacted them. I think I would feel better.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. And we also, just so you're aware of, the manager who works who runs the Tyler Blaine House, my staff, is actually a former SAP over in Groveton, so he's very connected in the school systems as well, and he sits on a youth subcommittee, homeless subcommittee as well, that a lot of the same people that are working with the McKinney-Vento and everything like that. So one more step to get us connected like that is a great idea. That's phenomenal. It's not something we would ever shy away from.
And I guess the other thing too is if there's anything on the state level that we can be of assistance to in squawking about equal representation in the North Country would be helpful to us.
That said, I don't want to be like Southern New Hampshire though.
I don't either. No, I love it up here, but you do want people to be able to access what they should get. So
Can I just add something to what you were asking about? Once we get them into housings, they need to be able to work and afford it and everything like that. Part of what we do in our homeless programs is we don't put somebody in a program or into a house unless we know it's sustainable for them, or if we have them in a program that makes it sustainable for them. And then part of that critical time intervention is once they're in the apartment or wherever it is, house, whatever it is, we're following them for an additional 9 months after that, slowly kind of pulling away. But the first couple of months are just making sure they're connected to the resources. You know, do you know where to go and get your mental health help? Are you connected with that? Are you connected with substance use disorder counselors? Are you making it to your appointments? Do you know how to use the transportation around here to get to those? Do you know that your insurance will pay for your medical bills, travel expenses, all that kind of thing? So that by the end of those 9 months, this person is fully connected with all the resources in their community, because as the pandemic has shown us, anybody can reach a point of needing help at some point in time throughout their life without it being someone else's without it being their fault.
Now, as you do that, what would you, after 9 months, what's your success rate? Or what's the word?
Recidivism.
Yeah.
Recidivism, yes. I unfortunately don't have a number of that. I know I can tell you, because it is an evidence-based program that we're using, that it is a successful program. I don't have numbers to say what the recidivism, what the return would be.
Now, we're not, I can tell you, we're not seeing the same faces.
No.
Once we
Okay.
get somebody in, which is great, which is what we hoped for. We were one of the first agencies in the state to adopt CTI for our housing stability program. State got all excited about it because it was one of those things. Yes, this is the answer. You cannot just put people in housing and dump them there. They won't be able to maintain it. And we've had good success with it so far.
I could tell you before COVID hit, before the pandemic hit, to give you some sort of numbers, we were working on a 30 to 60 day turnaround, which what that meant was somebody was coming into the Tyler Blaine house, let's say, and within 30 to 60 days we're put in permanent sustainable housing and we didn't see them again.
Yep.
You know, it was taking us a month to 2 months of them sitting at the Tyler Blaine house working with our case managers, getting through all the barriers they needed to and getting them into a place where we as a program felt comfortable hands off saying you can actually afford that on your own. You don't need our help with this. We're not setting you up for failure. So it's, you know.
So I'm going to draw this to a close, and I thank you for inviting Matt and Jean, and thank you, Seal, for all the hard work that you do, and
Thank
we
you,
appreciate
guys.
it. And
Thank
if
you.
we have any other questions, we will let you
Okay.
know. So
It's a nice conversation to have.
Yes,
Very
it
nice
is.
and informative.
informative and gives us a better sense, because we are representatives as well, and to what is in the budget and how it's working and why it's in the budget. So we need to be knowledgeable of that. Remember the cheat sheet I was saying to the school board about, you know, construction projects? Well, we need our cheat sheets on the budget. So thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I'm sorry, I have another meeting here at 6, so I'm having my dinner now.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. That helped. It was excellent.
And she, you know, you have my information, you know how to get a hold of us at Tri-County Cap. Anytime it would be useful for someone for Cap to represent to come, just let us know.
We will, yeah.
We'll do our best to get somebody there every time we can.
Well, we're only supposed to be talking about the budget, but we usually don't we?
I know.
It's my
for us to get the report back on what people are buying, you know, buying out, and I think, was it 70,000 is what has been budgeted? Yeah, and it's just been kind of based on a historical. Some people use it, some don't, but I think what happens is kind of become a little bit of a indirect Christmas bonus with their time, but paying early. Now think of it this way, it may sound negative in the beginning that, oh my gosh, that's an extra 70 we spent, but it's their time. If it's kept on the books and they cash it out next year and there'd been an increase, then you're paying that same amount at a higher rate. So to be very honest, to have them kind of buy their time out and within a current year is reducing our liability, because even when they left, you would owe them 100% of their time. So while we budget for it, I mean, it kind of is not a negative in the sense unless you just took it away, period, and said it's a use it or lose it, and that'd be a different
But
scenario.
the reason that the situation exists in the first place is that your basic town employee, starting with their third year on the job, gets 5.4 weeks vacation a year. So that's the reason there's so much time, is because they start accumulating it so fast. You know, something that doesn't exist
So that's,
in most places on Main Street. So that's why you get into that situation, is because it, and Jim, I understand your point about, but really it probably should be in that salary line item, is realistically, you know, probably most good working people, if they have a couple weeks vacation a year, is probably what they're gonna use for their family or whatever. So the 3 other weeks, they're actually gonna look to get paid for that, so that job really pays that much more money.
so, I mean, that's something that has been a kind of a bone of contention. And is it something that should be grandfathered, a different strategy?
If you could ever break the cycle, but it, you know, I mean, truthfully, when it started, you know, and I guess I've been on long enough to remember this, when it started, a lot of our Littleton employees were getting a substandard wage. And and this benefit was something, was a means of
Right.
making that wage
Placate.
more of a market driven, you know, that it averaged out. But I mean, over time, especially up in this part of the state, I think that our wage scale is quite competitive with, you know, other people in the same type industry. If you take the highway department vis-a-vis people working in construction or whatever, I believe there's many people in construction getting 5 weeks vacation a year. So that's, you know, that's, and, you know, and as we, you know, in the school system, Diane, remember, obviously they basically have the same thing, but we were successful a few years ago at reducing their number of vacation days from 18 a year to 50.
Yeah, it was sick, yes, sick leave and because they don't really have vacation, so to speak, but it was sick leave and something else, I can't remember.
And in Littleton too, it's all inclusive, it's vacation.
Yeah, well, a lot of places have gone to just PTO, paid time
Yeah.
off, so there's no
Yeah.
differentiation between
Right.
sick or
You don't have to-
vacation. You just have X amount of days.
Yeah, although in the school
And they can be
system,
planned or
try to-
unplanned is how
Yeah.
you
They do
manage
try
it.
to confine it so that you can take Friday off and Monday off for sick days, but you can't take Thursday and Tuesday without going
Yeah,
to
something
the
like that.
doctor.
All right, hit it.
All right, and so again, it's not new, it's just the way that we're accounting for it so that you can see it. The question 4 was the New Hampshire retirement system. I mean, it definitely is a significant benefit for employees.
Do you think we could all participate in that?
I did ask Seal, who's been around a while, I mean, in the sense of that, you know, there may be some small communities in New Hampshire that don't participate, but she wasn't aware of any alternative program that other towns and cities have signed up for as an alternative to New
I think
Hampshire.
some small towns do 401K.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of that, and so, I mean, that's definitely an option of the BOS that's somewhere down, but keep in mind that most of the people you've got now are already in that system, so you're not gonna have any savings. You know, the state's increase already was dictated as of June.
Yeah.
So if you went to a different system or a new system, it would be for new employees on, and I hate to say this, but probably take you 10, 15, 20 years for the employees to cycle out.
All right, but even if that were if you could actually do it.
Yeah,
that would
and-
still
yeah,
be-
and I don't know, I mean-
Didn't you say that's what happened in Florida?
No, what Florida did is, Florida, I wasn't fortunate enough to ever work with a town that was in the Florida retirement system. My wife does as a school teacher. So what Florida did is, it was a defined benefit, which is what it is here in New Hampshire. You work X number of years, your last 5 years, there's a factor, you get X amount a month for the rest of your life with some inflation. Florida switched part of their plan to a 401. The state will put in a certain percentage and the employee has to put in a certain percentage, and that grows just like on the market, your Raymond James, Merrill Lynch, or what have you. So new employees coming in go into the defined contribution, and other employees were grandfathered in the defined benefit. But that was a state change.
Yeah. But somebody had to initiate.
Yeah, no, that was the state legislature.
But did I mention, Jim, that New Hampshire doesn't have sufficient bonding capacity to buy themselves out of the state retirement system?
Which is not uncommon. I mean, I'm not bragging, Florida is probably one of the best funded. I mean, they've done a good job of that, so it's almost like to take it away isn't because of funding problem. The towns in trouble in Florida are the ones that have their own plans, and they've contributed, or they've dedicated so much to public safety that in the future, the majority of their budgets is going to be going to paying retired police and fire officers than running the day-to-day. And those are the ones that are not in the state system.
That's right, so eventually something is gonna break. It's
So,
not sustainable.
But, yeah, so there isn't anything from a budgeting standpoint that we can do about that, other than the numbers that are given us.
I think we just had questions about why is
Yeah.
it so poorly funded, you know, for the
Maybe-
retirement, I mean.
Maybe Miss Hennessy and some others could answer
Yeah,
those questions.
and I was just,
because they're-
we brought it up earlier as, you know, having a
Yeah.
meeting with this, but I'm thinking probably not during the budget season, but maybe some
That might
off
be
time.
something on a bigger
Off time,
level, yeah,
yes, okay, go ahead.
Okay, As I said, Katie is the sole employee that's in there. Item subject to change that we haven't set yet, as you said earlier, Diane, and you guys all know, we're in contract negotiations.
So, question on that though, Jim.
Sorry.
Did you put in, and I'm not gonna ask what it is, but did you put in an assumed increase, or did you keep the flat?
No, we put in the increase that the state mandated.
Yeah, okay.
You you
Yeah.
have to put that into the
Yeah,
budget.
yeah, I mean, yeah.
Because
So,
you can't
Yeah,
check
no,
the-
no. So if the, just hypothetically, if a police officer was at 28% and it went to 32,
Yeah,
then we had to put in to 32. Okay.
yeah, okay.
All right. In reference to Highway Department and the Fire Department, those contracts are currently being negotiated. I won't delve into a lot because I know there's supposed to be confidentiality while those meetings are going on.
Just a question.
But we did have a meeting today, and we did get a proposal from the Highway Department, and I was deeply disappointed, and I need to follow up why, because the fire chief wasn't at the meeting this morning, and neither was anybody from fire, so that tied half our hands. And so I've got some questions I gotta ask somebody tomorrow. I didn't get the email saying they weren't gonna be there, so I'm not a happy camper right now, because we had this meeting to go over, and we got the highway information, but it's like, I need the
What-
fire information, okay? So,
So is it an advantage for the town that they're negotiated in the same year, at the same time?
Well-
Or should they be staggered, or?
well, your police is staggered, and highway and fire are combined, because that's the only way they had the number of people to make a
Yeah,
bargaining
right.
unit.
That's what they do.
After the EMS vote, there is the potential that, because highway department and fire want to separate.
Yeah.
They don't want to be together, so they want to be their own, they want to be their own.
So the fire wants the EMT rolled into their numbers to go separate.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and,
okay.
but as of right now, because of the way the pilot was set up and the vote and all hasn't been done, they kind of can't do that right now, so they've got a choice of do a 1 year, do a no contract, or, do a 2 year and then go through the formal process of separating the unions or the bargaining units. I mean, you'd still be dealing with the same people, but right now it's still being dealt with as a group, but
Yeah.
we saw the highway numbers and they were proposing a 3 year. Yeah, nobody said they were proposing a 3 year.
Don't say anymore.
No dollars or anything.
I don't want you
so-
to get in
so-
trouble.
So it could change the timing on that depending on what one group does or
Is the
another.
transfer station no longer?
Correct.
Well, they're back at the table
No.
because of new employees.
Okay,
So
so,
they're back at the table, so.
okay, so we won't
Yeah. but
ask
anyway,
too much
yeah,
more.
Our next meeting is the 18th, and then we have a meeting on the 30th. So my goal is hopefully, I'd like to think we're done by the 30th, at
And
least with a
It's
proposal.
the 30th of November.
November.
Okay, so then it can be brought forward, because if it's a warrant article, then the budget committee has to
Yeah,
vote
yeah,
one way or the
yeah.
other on it.
Well, I understand you guys have to anyway. I mean, if they come to an agreement, if there's
Right,
no
if they
contract, there's no
don't,
issue,
right,
but yeah, but it
yeah.
has to be done.
What
But
union represents them?
what do you
Perhaps me.
Yeah, I always.
AFSCME, yeah.
Ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's close enough, right? So that should do it, right?
Okay.
That's it.
Yep.
So.
And then we have Parks and Rec
For next
Tuesday.
week, yeah.
Excellent.
I think we're pretty much down with
Oh,
the
yeah,
different
Lori's gonna go
departments.
ahead and pass out at least a draft copy of at least the
Now that we know you guys.
updated list of some warrant articles, so we don't have to discuss them tonight, but at least you'll have them for preparation when we get to discuss them.